at a journey where color is starting to be considered in a slightly more sculptural way. So I'm creating these kind of paper elements that are a collection of, I call them painting artifacts. They're elements that collect paint during the painting process, bits of paper, blotting papers, white wiping papers. And I've started collecting these to be exhibited with the painted images in a way to elaborate on the image and the actual material, relationships of color and the process. I guess the best, maybe a good example would be here. I worked in gouache on paper, and I wipe my pans with just paper towels. And so they soak up a lot of color, so I've stopped throwing that stuff away. Initially, it was an environmental thing. I thought, I'm just wasting all of this material. So I thought I have to start saving it. This was in my studio at home in Vancouver. And interesting things started to happen, like I put bunches of these in containers, and they would start to interact. I'd come back in the studio the next day, and a blue would have bled into a yellow or a red in really beautiful ways. So I thought, I really have to start using these because they tell something about the painting and how I paint. I don't work with color symbolically or maybe even historically, although I'm looking at paintings all the time from history. I think that color is very, very powerful. It goes straight into the nervous system for people. So I think it's a very individual thing. I think people have very strong emotional responses to it, really, and often quite not violent, but I'll find people will really react strongly to a color, and it's very different depending on the individual. It's very emotional. I think it's a way to get outside of our rational, intellectual, it's like a pre-verbal kind of thing. It's a very, I think, very primal thing, color. So for me, it's very, I love color. I just love looking at it, I think. Some of those, just look at Mark Rothko, some of the strongest work in the 20th century was working with color. I kind of think in a way we're just getting started with it, We've only been really dealing with color for color's sake for just a bit over 100 years now. So I think there's a lot to do with it. I think that color's had a very bad rap in art, and there's a fellow, he's a British writer, David Batchelor, and he's written a book called Chromophobia, and he's chronicled how we are, as a culture, European and American, we have been educated and conditioned to fear color and to actually downplay it. It's seen often as feminine, primitive. It's something from other cultures. It's the other. It's decorative. It's not structural. It's a very good book. So I'm kind of working with those ideas, like how to challenge these historical prejudices, really, about color. And in my work, how to work with color and describe it in a way that's structural, like it's structural in the painting. It's not a surface thing. I think a lot of, for example, with a drawing approach, like, you kind of focus on the form, and then the color is secondary, it's kind of filled in, it fills in the form. I'm interested in work that actually works with it structurally. It's also, it's a historical thing. It's the old design versus color thing that goes way back to Plato. And, we've had that manifested many times throughout history. Who would be a good example of that? Delacroix and Jean-Dominique Ang. Who else? They're not coming to mind, but, you have the drawing academic approach versus a more free-flowing color approach. When I think about color, I think about pigments. I think about my paints in terms of the pigments, not just the color, because for a red you might have dozens of pigments that we would consider red, and there are all kinds of different reds. So my work with color has really led me to think about think about it specifically in terms of the materiality of the pigment and what that means. And I have a very favorite one, and it's PR 170, and that means Pigment Red 170. And it's a 20th century pigment. I can't remember when they invented it. It's not that old. It's not that old. But it's a super powerful pigment. It's almost neon. And I love it in gouache because it has what I call it has a duochromatic quality. So in mass tone, it looks quite warm almost, and then when you wash it out, it's a hot pink. So it's just got this life to it that's spectacular. It's really punchy, and I like to joke about it. I say that it's the demon pigment because it's so strong and it won't come out of the brushes. So I always say you need an exorcist maybe to come in and get the pigment out of the brushes. So that's really my favorite right now. Yeah. In terms of my work, I worked much faster here, and I tend to sit and think more at home, you know. So I didn't have time to think, and that was a very good thing for me. So new gestures and shapes and things started to emerge that at home I might have actually edited out, or, you know, I kind of, what's the word, police myself, you know, what's the word where your id is in Superdrive? But here I just let it happen, even if it annoyed me. So that was very good. So I have some new things I want to try. More generally, in terms of the setting, it was spectacular. Like, you know, I'm from Vancouver, where we're very young, we're a very young city, everything's very new, it's all glass towers and modernism. So to be in a historical setting like this was just wonderful. All of the texture, the social texture, the material texture was very inspiring. And the light in these beautiful windows, absolutely magical, you know. It was great.